Hey guys, it's Tanika and welcome back to my channel. Now you may notice I only have my base done, and that is because in today's video we are going to be testing out a newly released palette from the drugstore. So this here is the Models Prefer Sunsetter palette, and does it look a little bit familiar to you? It is literally an exact dupe of the Huda Beauty Desert Dusk palette. So up the top you've got the Huda Beauty Desert Dusk palette, and down the bottom the Models Prefer, and as you can see all the colours look almost identical and are in the exact same order. Now the Huda Beauty palette retails for over $90 here in Australia, and the Models Prefer Sunsetter palette is only $20. So in today's video I'm going to be giving you a demo using this palette and letting you know my first impressions, and also showing you some side-by-side swatches of these shades compared to the Desert Dusk palette. So if you're interested in all of that, then give this video a thumbs up and keep on watching. Now, as I like to do, I'm just going to start with a little bit of product information. Now, I did a little bit of research and actually found out that Models Prefer is Priceline's own Luxe for Less range of cosmetics and beauty tools. The range was developed by Priceline's beauty team, and they offer tools and cosmetics under $25. If you're overseas, I'm not sure if you can pick up this brand. The Priceline website doesn't ship internationally, but if I do find a website that stocks it, I will leave it down in the description box for you. So as I said, this palette retails for $20 and it comes with 18 shades. You get a mix of mattes, duochrome and metallic finishes. The packaging is just this plain white plastic, and when you open it up, it does come with a really big mirror. And what I really like about the packaging as well is that the shade names are actually printed onto it. I haven't actually had a play with this yet, so let's get into some swatches and I'll show you what all the shades look like. Alright, so here are all the swatches. I just rubbed my finger in and gave them one swipe. I am super impressed at the pigmentation on both the mattes and the shimmers. The shimmers especially are so pigmented, so I really hope that they perform well on the lids. I'll just give you a little close-up of all the shades. Alright, so I've just prepped my eyelids with some concealer, and I'm not going to be setting that with powder, so I am just using my brush to kind of pat that down so that it dries. Alright, the first shade I'm taking is this orange one, and it's called Flashing. There is a bit of kickback when I dip my brush in. Doesn't bother me. And then I'm just going to slowly start blending out the edges of that shade. For that shade, I used the Morphe E17 brush. It's just a small, fluffy brush. And then next, I'm going to be taking the Morphe E27. This brush is significantly larger and it's very fluffy. And with this brush, I'm going to be taking this shade up here, and I'm going to use that to diffuse the edges of the shade I've got down. And then I'm also going to take that orange shade and put it down on my lower lash line. Then I'm going to take this deep red shade here called Torched, and it looks like a matte, but I can actually see a little bit of glitter in it. But with this shade, I'll be using my Morphe E18 brush, and this is just a small bullet brush. I'm just switching over to my Sigma E25 blending brush. And I'm going to use this one with that same shade so I can blend it up into my crease. And then back to the pencil brush to apply that shade on the lower lash line. So far, I like how the colors are blending and packing onto my lid. My lower lash line, they aren't as pigmented and do look a little bit patchy. Now, I have set my under eyes with powder, so that could be why it's just not sticking as well as it is to the wet concealer on my lid. Then for my lower lash line, I'm taking this deep brown called Bonfire, and on a small brush, this is the Sigma E15 Flat Definer, I'm going to run this really tightly to my lower lash line. I've just gone ahead and applied a little bit of concealer to the center of my lid so that my halo shadow really pops. And for this, I'm going in with this shade here. I'm going to apply it dry first and see how the pigmentation is, and if it's not as poppin' as I want it to be, I'll go in and wet the shadow. I am getting a little bit patchy here. I don't know, I'm not very good at cutting my crease with concealer. I find that it still looks quite messy, so I don't know. It could look a little bit patchy because of me and just over blending. Okay, so I just rubbed off that eye look I did because it just went so patchy and it did not look good. So off camera, I tried another eye look. I used this peachy shade here, which blended out really nicely. And then I did a halo cut crease again, and I used this shade Beacon on the lid, and all was going well until I started to blend out the edges, and it started to go patchy again, and then it went a little bit muddy. I was like, oh, like what is going on? Nothing irritates me more than patchy eyeshadows. So I rubbed that off, and here we are going in for a third time. I don't know, like the mattes, they're blending out really nicely, but then I think when I start to build up the color too much, or maybe I overwork it, is when it starts to go patchy and it looks really muddy. So I think for this look, I'm just going to do something simple. I really wanted to use heaps of colors and really test out the palette, but from the other two looks I just did, it's not working. So yeah, I'm going to just try something simple. And I'm also finding with these shimmer shades, let me show you on this one. Can you see how it's starting to like seal over? And same on the gold shade that I used. I don't know, you can see it more on this shade. See that little patch in the middle? It's like if you swatch it too much or use a wet brush, it like seals over and then you can't use it. Like, I don't know, you don't pick up as much on the brush. Okay, so let's zoom back in and try look 3. Alright, so I'm going to start off with this shade here. Alright, so that shade has blended out really nicely. To further diffuse that shade, I'm going in with this, I'm going in with this nude shade called Lantern. And using a nice big fluffy brush, I'm going to dip into a little bit of that and blend it out. And then I'm a little bit scared too, but I'm going just to take a small amount of this shade called Blaze and just slightly deepen up that outer corner. Do you see that? Do you see the patchiness there? That wasn't there before when I just used the one shade. So I'm not going to blend, I'm just going to pack this on and try and save that patchiness. I think that is the best I'm going to be able to do without ruining it again. So next I'm going to take this shimmer shade here. This one's called Ray, and I'm going to put that over my lid and try and blend it into this matte shade. Alright, so I've used this shade Dry, and I have really had to pack it on to get a nice shimmer to it. I don't know, I just don't like the way these mattes have blended. Like, look how messy that looks. Let's try and get a little bit more of the Blaze shade. And this is what I would normally do when doing my eyeshadow anyway. And I'm going to pat that onto the outer corner to blend the shimmer into the matte. I can't. That looks terrible. Like I don't even want to finish. All right, I will try it on the other eye, but if it doesn't work, I'm not finishing this look because that's just, I'm really sad. It's just so patchy and look at all this fallout. The pan looks so messy too. Look at that. Like I don't usually mind if there's a bit of kickback when you dip into your shadow, but this is just going everywhere. All right, I'm not happy with this, but I'm going to try the shimmer shade Wet and see if that makes a difference. So what I usually do is dip my brush into the shimmer shade and then spray the MAC Fix Plus directly onto the brush. I don't like to spray my brush first and then dip it into my shadow because then it tends to seal the shadow, but these shadows are doing that without me dipping in with a wet brush. You know what I mean? Okay, it doesn't look much better. With it wet, see how it looks chunky? Well, I'm not going to finish this look because I'm just not happy with how the shadows are performing. As I said, this is my third different look today using this palette, and again, it is just going patchy. I find that the colors are kind of just blending into each other as well and like looking muddy. It's a real shame because the swatches looked really nice, but that goes to prove that swatches don't always mean good things. So let me just show you the palette and go over the different shades that I did try today. We've got this shade up here, which is just a neutral. That blended out fine. You can barely see it, but it worked. And then I used this shade here for two of the looks, and it blended out fine on its own, but as soon as I added extra colors, no good. I then use this shade, that is what I've got on the outer corners right now, and as you can see, it's just patchy. Well, can you see from back there? Patchy, look at that. I also used this shade when I did my first look, which was the deeper halo eye, and I used this shade last to just add some depth, and again, that's just what made it look patchy. I then tried this shade, which is what I've got on my lids right now, and it doesn't come off as pigmented on the lids as it does when you swatch it, and it's kind of turned chunky on the lids anyway. It doesn't look like a nice smooth metallic, it's like chunky globs. This shade here I tried on the second look, which I did off camera, and it's not super pigmented, it's more of a topper shade, but I did use it over concealer and it looked nice and blended out well, but as soon as I tried to blend a matte into the edges, patch city. I didn't try these three purples, but I tried this shade on the end. I used that on my second look. I popped it in the center for a halo. No, when did I use that one? Oh no, I tried 4 looks. Oh my god, yeah, I tried 4. Okay, I tried 2 off camera. Man. Okay, so I used this shade for a halo eye look. That one I did off camera. So I blended the orange out and then popped that in the middle. It's not super pigmented, and this one I'm finding I'm getting a major like seal over the shadow, so I used this shade here on the very first look I did on camera. It was really nice, but again, as soon as I tried to blend the mattes into it, it went patchy. And then I used these 2 shades down the bottom. The orange seemed to blend out really nicely on its own, and the red, it was blending out nicely, but I found it just went muddy and mixed into the orange. Like you couldn't see the gradient between the two. Like that could be a part of my blending, but I don't know, usually it doesn't happen that bad. Like they just completely blended into each other and looked muddy, so. Well, unfortunately, I am not too impressed with this palette, which is a real bummer because it's such a great dupe for the Huda Beauty palette and at such an affordable price. I don't know, if you really, really love the Huda palette but can't afford it, maybe try this. I don't highly recommend it though. I don't know, I hate being mean because it is such a nice palette, but it just hasn't worked. So tell me what you think in the comments below of my looks. Am I just being dramatic? Am I being too picky? I don't think I am, considering I wiped off 3 different looks and tried a 4th one. Like, I know I am not the absolute queen of eyeshadow blending, but I feel like I can do a reasonably good job, and these shadows just aren't even doing that reasonably good job. Alright, well, if you're interested, I will still pop in some side-by-side swatches of this palette and the Huda palette. But overall, I think that is everything I want to mention. I'm sorry this video wasn't what I wanted it to be. Let me know in the comments below what your thoughts are and if you are still going to pick up this palette or not. Be sure to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it anyway, and make sure you are subscribed to my channel if you aren't already, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye! So this is the first row from each palette. You can't really see, but there's the nude shade here. So starting off with Models Prefer, then Huda, Models Prefer, Huda. Is it Huda or Huda? I don't even know. Models Prefer, Huda. You get the gist. I'm finding that the Huda Beauty palette, the mattes actually feel a lot more dry, but like I said earlier, I guess the swatches don't really matter because they perform a lot better on the eyelids. Alright, so this is the next row. The first 2 shades are quite different. They're not an exact dupe. So again, we've got Models Prefer first and then Huda. The next 2 shades are quite similar. They're both toppers and they have a gold, like a glitter through them. And then as you can see, the rest of the shades are quite good color dupes. So you've got these 2 here, these 2, them 2, and them 2. Alright, so then here is the last row. The first 2 shades, they are quite different. Then you've got the pink shades are quite similar. These 2, there are obviously a noticeable difference because the one from the Huda palette is a glitter. The next 2 shades quite similar, and same with the rest of them. So they are all the shades swatched side by side from each palette. Clearly they are very, very similar, but if you absolutely love these shades and need them in your life, I'd probably just save up for the Huda Beauty palette because the shades just perform better. If you're interested, I will leave some links to my Instagram where I've got some pictures of looks that I have done using the Huda Beauty palette, just so you can see that the shadows do work very nicely. Alright, I've already said goodbye, but here I am rambling on again. So goodbye again, and I'll see you all in the next video.